All right, today we're going to talk about something that is, without a doubt, one of the most critical hurdles in the entire Australian visa process. We're talking about the character requirement. And let me tell you, this is so much more than just a box-ticking exercise. It's a fundamental test that could literally decide your entire future in Australia. Okay, let's get right into it.
So, are you thinking about applying for an Australian visa? Maybe you're a student, a skilled worker, or you're hoping to join your family? Well, if that's you, then you've come to the right place. What we're about to cover is an absolute deal breaker for your application.
Yep, it really is that simple and that serious. The Australian government needs to be absolutely sure that anyone they grant a visa to is of good character. This isn't just a policy, it's the law, and it applies to you and any family members in your application who are 16 years of age or older.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down for you. First, we'll explain what the requirement actually is. Then, we'll look at what it takes to pass the test. After that, we'll cover how you prove your character, what happens if you fail, and those consequences are serious. And finally, we'll touch on the appeals process.
All right, first things first, let's get to the foundation of this whole thing. This isn't some arbitrary rule somebody made up, it's written directly into Australian law, and you've got to understand that from the get-go.
So this whole character thing isn't just a suggestion. It's got real legal teeth. It comes straight from Section 501 of the Migration Act. The whole point is to make sure that you and your family meet the character standards that Australia expects. And get this, it's not a one-and-done check. It's an ongoing requirement.
Look, when it comes right down to it, this whole system is built on one thing: honesty. You have an obligation to declare everything, and I mean everything, even charges that didn't end in a conviction. Trust me on this, trying to hide something is often seen as a much bigger deal than whatever the original issue was. Full disclosure is really your only path forward.
Okay, we've talked about the why, so now let's get into the what. What exactly is the Department of Home Affairs looking for when they're digging into your character?
This is the million-dollar question, right? What does it actually mean to fail this test? It's not about a minor parking ticket. The reasons for failing are very specific, and they cover a whole range of behavior, from your past right up to the present.
Well, there are a bunch of reasons, and some of them are pretty serious. Let's start with the big ones. Having a substantial criminal record, that's a huge red flag. It's legally defined and usually means you've served a prison sentence of 12 months or more. But check this out. It also includes who you associate with, so who you know can be just as important as what you've done.
And the list doesn't stop there. This really shows you just how wide the net is cast. It goes way beyond just criminal convictions. They look at your general conduct and even the risk that you might engage in criminal conduct in the future. It also covers things like a bad security assessment from ASIO, Australia's security agency. And yeah, any kind of domestic violence order or conviction, that's a huge factor.
All right, so you know what they're looking for, but how do you actually prove you're a person of good character? This part is all about what you need to do and the paperwork you'll have to pull together.
Okay, I know I sound like a broken record here, but this is the most important thing you'll hear today. Be honest. Full disclosure is non-negotiable. Any attempt to lie or even just fudge the details is a one-way ticket to a visa refusal. And it can even come back to bite you years later and get your visa canceled.
So, what kind of paperwork are we talking about? Well, you're almost definitely going to need police certificates from every single country you've lived in for 12 months or more in the last decade. And then there are things like Form 80, which is a super detailed questionnaire about your life. My advice? Start getting these documents together early, like yesterday.
Now, if you've spent time in Australia, listen up because this is super specific. You've got to get your police check from the Australian Federal Police, the AFP, not your state police. You have to select code 33 for immigration, and don't forget to include every single name you've ever been known by, like a maiden name. Get any of that wrong, and you'll just cause delays.
This next part is, well, it's pretty heavy. We need to talk about what happens if you fail the character test. You have to understand the risks here because the consequences are severe and they can change your life forever.
Okay, this is a really important distinction to understand. On one hand, you have character considerations. This is kind of like a balancing act. The minister will look at your ties to Australia, the impact on your family, and weigh it all up. They can still decide to grant you a visa. But on the other side, you have mandatory cancellation, and that's a whole different ballgame. If you've served 12 months or more in prison, for example, the law says the visa must be cancelled. There's no wiggle room, no discretion, it's automatic.
So the first and most obvious thing that happens is your visa gets refused, or if you already have one, it gets canceled.
Simple as that. But wait, it doesn't end there. Not by a long shot. A character-based refusal sets off a whole chain reaction of other really serious consequences.
And here's what that domino effect looks like. If you're in the country, you could end up in immigration detention and then be removed from Australia. You'll probably be hit with a re-entry ban. And here's the kicker. It can slam the door on you ever applying for most other Aussie visas again in the future.
Okay, so what if the worst happens? Is it all over? Well, not necessarily. There are potential avenues for appeal, so let's take a look.
Now, the first thing you need to know is this. Not every decision can be appealed. When you get that notification letter, and it will be in writing, it will tell you in black and white if you have the right to a review and what the steps are.
If you do have the right to appeal, you've basically got two paths. The Administrative Review Tribunal, or ART, can take a fresh look at your case, all the facts, and make a new decision. Judicial review is different. It's not about the facts, it's about whether a legal mistake was made in the first decision. Oh, and a key point. If the immigration minister themselves made the call, you can't go to the ART.
But here is the single most critical thing about any appeal. The clock is ticking. You will have a very strict, non-negotiable deadline. If you miss it, that's it. Game over. Your chance is gone. There are no extensions. You absolutely have to act fast.
So at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one big question. The only way to make sure the answer is no is to understand these rules, be brutally honest about everything, and have all your proof ready to go. That's how you make sure your past doesn't stop you from building your future in Australia.